I'm in Arizona on location. It's the NFL annual owners meetings, and they started off early this morning. John Lynch spoke at 8. I'm sure everyone's seen the interview, heard what he said, but I asked him point blank. The first few questions were about Brock's recovery, and I was like, that's not the topic. The topic is who your starting quarterback is, and God love John Lynch. He answered the question. He was like, well, it seems like Brock Purdy has earned the right to be the guy. If they were to take snaps right now, he'd be the starter even though he's hurt. So that's very interesting to me. That means whenever Brock is ready, he could miss the entire offseason. He's the starter. And they seem to think that he could be special. What do you think of that?
There's a lot to unpack here, Grant. I feel a lot. There's a lot to unpack here. Honestly, part of it's not really groundbreaking, right? Based on everything, all the messaging they've given out, we kind of know that's how they felt. But it just kind of confirms when you come out and say it again, it just kind of confirms what they've been thinking. And it's that Brock Purdy's their guy. Now, I think that's a huge mistake. And I think we've seen the 49ers make this mistake before with Jimmy Garoppolo after 5 games. They went all in on him, paid him $135 million. Luckily for the 49ers, they don't have to pay Brock Purdy, but they're still going all in on him with their messaging. And if you're Trey Lance, the messaging sucks. If I'm Trey Lance, F you, trade me. That's how I'm feeling right now after seeing that. And honestly, they should. Why did they draft Trey Lance if they thought that it was a misevaluation, if they thought that he was ready to just come out and start and be the guy? Like, anybody from the outside should have recognized that when you drafted Trey Lance, that meant you needed to develop him and develop him with playing time on the field.
Well, hold on. We're going to talk about Trey Lance next. Let's stick with Brock for now because, I mean, it's interesting. Like, to your point, 8 starts. 8 starts, and they feel like he's the guy. He's done it. First of all, that's a very small sample size. And when asked about it, John Lynch was like, well, it's the way he played. Dude, it's 8 games. There's no way you can play 8 games and prove enough. And he got hurt in 2 of them.
Yeah.
And in the second to last one, he scored 19 points against a really good defense. So
and I disagree. I disagree with the how part. Like, they're really focused on how he did it. Well, how he did it was being a system quarterback. How he did it was because of Kyle Shanahan's offensive scheme. That's how he did it. It's not like he was out there putting the team on his shoulders and carrying them. If he was doing that, it'd be a different thing. And
what would the offense have been doing if they didn't have Christian McCaffrey and all those guys?
Right, or Kyle Shanahan. Right, these guys were wide.
And
open.
I think he's getting a lot of credit for being better than Jimmy. He was more mobile than Jimmy. He had more escapability than Jimmy. But that's a low bar. That's like saying someone's a great right tackle because he's better than Mike McGlinchey. Hold on. So it seems like once again the Niners are kind of rushing into things with the quarterback. Thank goodness the Niners can't give him an extension right now because they probably would and give him a lot of money. But I think what's interesting is, to me, I feel like they're setting him up not necessarily for failure, but man, he's not Drew Brees. He's not a 10-year vet. He's not going to really have an offseason, and he's going to be your week 1 starter no matter what. When I asked Kyle Shanahan this question 2 months ago, not even, his answer was, I haven't thought of it. 1, I don't know. And 2, we have 2 starting quarterbacks. Well, if you have 2 starting quarterbacks and one's going to miss the entire offseason and the other isn't, how do you go with the guy who missed the entire offseason? If you really feel that way, that you have 2 starting quarterbacks. But Kyle says one thing, I got 2 starting quarterbacks. John straight up says it's Brock's the guy. He's earned the right. And so to me, it feels like, hey, man, I don't know who wanted to trade up for Trey Lance, but it doesn't feel like it was John Lynch at all.
It definitely wasn't John Lynch. That's what I've heard. And here's the crazy thing. Not only are you going all in on a Brock Purdy who is shown to be, to me, look, I'm tired of being political about my answers. I think Brock Purdy's a mid quarterback, maybe 15th in the NFL. That's it, right? Fair. He's not going to be an elite quarterback, in my opinion. I just don't see it. So it's crazy to me that you're going all in on a quarterback that's probably a mid-level quarterback who's coming off a UCL injury. He can't even throw the ball right now, and you're anointing him as your franchise quarterback, essentially. It's mind-boggling. It doesn't make any sense to me. Even if he was healthy, I wouldn't do it. But coming off a UCL injury, rehabilitating, you can't even throw a football right now.
Yeah. It seems desperate. It seems crazy. Desperate. It seems desperate. It seems unrealistic. And it seems wrong. Not wrong, but wrong-headed. Again, if you really felt they say, we like Trey. We like Trey. He just has to prove he can stay healthy. He has to get on the field. Yeah. Well, then you should feel very confident about him because he's going to have the entire offseason, all the first-string reps. He'll be ready to go.
Yeah.
Brock won't. So you're going to throw Brock out there with no offseason and say, Brock, pick up where you left off. Odds are he won't. And if he doesn't, if the offense struggles early on like it always does, and you can tell that he doesn't have the same arm strength that he had last year, boy, his stock could crater quickly. People could say, you know what? Yeah, that was a flash in the pan. League caught up to him. Arm isn't what it was. You know what? He's Mr. Irrelevant again. Yeah. That could happen real fast. So I feel bad. I don't feel bad for Brock, but I'm a little I almost feel bad for Brock for getting the starting job. And I almost feel good for Trey. Like, hey, man, you know, you're going to be on the bench for a while. And you might play when the offense is clicking because, I mean, that's been the Niners' pattern the last few years. So with Brock, again, it feels like, I don't know, the Niners are so desperate to say they have a franchise quarterback. Any guy who has a little bit of success to start his tenure is going to get the job, which is like such a short-sighted way of actually picking that position. Whoever has instant success is our guy. Like Peyton Manning didn't have instant success. Right? Like a lot of guys who ended up being Hall of Famers didn't have instant success. So that's how you're going to choose it? Okay.
The 49ers, to me right now, they're missing out on a golden opportunity. They have an opportunity right now with Brock Purdy's injury to say to everyone, to the fans, to the team, we believe in Brock Purdy. We believe in Trey Lance. Unfortunately, Brock Purdy is hurt right now and recovering from an injury. So we're going to go with Trey Lance because he's going to be the only one that's going to be healthy, most likely week 1. And see what they got, right? And this gives them an excuse to give Trey Lance what he needs most, which is playing time and experience, and see what you got in him and to develop him. And this is what he desperately needs. But instead, they're going the opposite route. And I wouldn't want to be on this team. It doesn't seem like he's going to have a fair opportunity to play quarterback. If I'm Trey Lance, I'm asking for a trade.
Right, because at this point, if you're Trey Lance, we're going to talk about him in a minute, you're wondering, does anyone want me here? Does anybody want me here anymore? And I think what's interesting is when John Lynch talks about Trey Lance, again, every time I'm like, man, he is not the one who wanted Trey Lance here. So it must have been Kyle. It had to have been Kyle. And if it's not Kyle, then they need to trade Trey Lance. So what I think it's interesting that John spoke first. He spoke today. He was definite. But he and Kyle don't always have the exact same answer. So Kyle talks tomorrow. Is he going to strike a different tone? Is he going to open the door for Trey Lance and Trey Lance's agent be like, look, John may have spoke, but this is my team and I'm the coach and I divvy up playing time. And he could sound much more optimistic about Trey tomorrow. He could sound much more measured and cautious about Brock Purdy. It's not that Brock didn't, blow the doors off of his audition. It's just that serious injury. You might, no offseason, serious injury, young, inexperienced quarterback, you might want to go very slow with him just on principle. So let's see if Kyle Shanahan says something different tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I expect that he will. I expect that he'll walk back a little bit of what John Lynch has been saying. And like I told you and other people, from what I've heard, that is the case. Kyle Shanahan's the one who wanted Trey Lance, and John Lynch wanted Mac Jones, and that's when you heard those Mac Jones rumors coming out because John Lynch wanted Mac Jones. Kyle Shanahan wanted Trey Lance, and every time John Lynch speaks about it, it becomes even more clear that was a correct rumor or source.
On the goal line says Lynch really said we like Trey right now. That really sounds like they may trade him at some point once they know Purdy is ready to roll. Sad. Yeah, I asked straight up, like, if you said he needs to play, if he can't get that opportunity here, will you trade him? And he's like, yeah, not right now. So possible. They could.
I could see it.
I could see it too. Running the FO Is It Madden This Be Politics for sure. It just seems like a really short-sighted decision based off a very small sample size. But again, I asked, are they trading Trey? They said no. So just because they're making a decision for week 1, that's not necessarily the decision for the future. These things could play out on their own. The Gold Rush 561 says, so let me get this straight. We can endure a year and 5 games of Jimmy Garoppolo before the 2019 season, but only give Trey Lance 4 games in a minicamp? Shake my damn head.